There's a specific type of person who notices everything. Every frown, every pause, every unspoken word. And psychology has now confirmed it's not a gift, it's a trap. These are the hyper-aware, people whose brains are constantly scanning for emotional cues, social threats, and hidden meanings in situations most people walk right past without a second thought. What looks like sharp empathy from the outside is actually a nervous system stuck in overdrive. And in this video, we're breaking down why it develops, what it does to the brain, and the hidden toll it quietly takes on your relationships, your body, and your mental health. If any of that sounds familiar, if you've been told you're too sensitive, if you replay conversations at 2 a.m. picking apart what you said wrong, or if social interactions leave you completely drained while others walk away unbothered, stay until the end. Because this video will finally give a name to what you've been experiencing your whole life. And more importantly, show you what you can actually do to break the cycle. But before we understand what this awareness does to a person, we need to understand where it actually comes from. Because it doesn't show up randomly, it is built. Psychology identifies two main pathways. First is biological. Some people are simply born with what researchers call sensory processing sensitivity, a nervous system genuinely wired to absorb more detail, more texture, more emotional signal than the average person ever registers. These individuals, sometimes called highly sensitive persons, make up roughly 15 to 20% of the population. Their brains process everything deeper, longer, and more thoroughly. And research confirms this trait correlates directly with higher levels of anxiety and emotional reactivity. The second pathway is environmental. And this one's harder to talk about. Imagine a child growing up in a home where the mood of the adults changed without warning. That child cannot afford to be innocent. They learn to read every room, every footstep, every shift in someone's breathing. They memorize the exact tone of voice that means the evening is about to go wrong. They learn precisely when to smile and when to quietly disappear. Biologically, their amygdala, the brain's internal alarm system, records one message on repeat. Pay attention to everything. Miss nothing. Because missing something could hurt you. When that child becomes an adult, the alarm doesn't switch off. It simply finds new rooms to scan. And the first thing it does, the one most people never talk about, is make you tired in a way that sleep cannot fix. For most people, the brain has a natural off switch during downtime. When you're not focused on a task, your mind drifts and rests. But for the hyper-aware, a brain system called the default mode network runs almost constantly, responsible for self-referential thinking, social analysis, and internal dialogue. In people who are too aware, this network rarely slows down. Even during rest, even during what should be a completely relaxed evening at home. Picture this. They go to dinner with friends. On the surface, they're laughing, present, enjoying the evening. But underneath, a second layer is quietly running the entire time. They caught the slight tension in a friend's posture halfway through the meal. They noticed someone's voice went a little flat when asked about work. They replayed something they said 30 minutes ago and are still deciding if it landed wrong. By the time they get home, they are exhausted. Not from the dinner itself, but from the invisible mental work their brain was doing the entire time. That kind of exhaustion doesn't show on your face. It lives somewhere behind your eyes. But the exhaustion is only the first layer, because the second thing hyper-awareness quietly does is make it almost impossible to take anything at face value. Psychology describes this through a concept called theory of mind. The ability to sense that other people carry thoughts, feelings, and intentions that don't always match what they say out loud. Most people access this occasionally. The hyper-aware accesses automatically, in every direction, without choosing to. Here's what that actually looks like. A colleague sends a short message at the end of the workday. Hey, can we talk tomorrow? For most people, that's a simple meeting request. But for the hyper-aware, something shifts the moment they read it. There's a coolness in the wording, a missing context that feels immediately significant. The brain starts running quietly. Did I do something wrong? Was it something I said in the last meeting? Was my tone off today? They don't just read the message, they feel it. And for the next several hours, they're half present in their actual life and half trapped inside a conversation that hasn't even happened yet. Not because they're paranoid, but because their brain is genuinely detecting signals that most people simply never register at all. And when that constant analysis touches every relationship, being close to people starts costing more than anyone around them ever realizes. People who are too aware almost always become the emotional anchor wherever they go. They sense tension between two people before a single word is spoken. They adjust their voice, their energy, their entire presence to match whoever walks into the room. Others gravitate toward them because they feel genuinely seen. And for the hyper-aware, being that person has always felt natural. It's the only mode they know. But it comes with a price that almost never gets acknowledged. They absorb everything. A friend calls to vent about a fight with their partner. And 3 days later, that weight is still sitting in the hyper-aware person's chest as if the argument belonged to them. A coworker is anxious before a difficult meeting and they walk into that room already carrying the stress before a single word has been exchanged. Psychology calls this emotional contagion. And for most people, that absorbed feeling fades within hours. For the hyper-aware, it lingers for days. They become a container for other people's emotional weight without ever intending to. And without most people ever realizing that's what's happening. And because they are so consistently the one doing the holding, almost nobody ever thinks to check on them. They become so skilled at making others feel understood that no one stops to notice they've never truly felt understood themselves. All of those suppressed emotions don't disappear. They move into the body. And that's where the fourth truth quietly waits. People who are too aware often have an unusually sensitive interoceptive system, a heightened ability to feel their own internal physical states. The insular cortex, the brain region responsible for processing these signals, runs on permanent high alert, which means ordinary sensations that most people barely register become loud, urgent messages that are difficult to ignore. Something as simple as a strong cup of coffee becomes its own ordeal. Their heart beats a little faster from the caffeine. For most people, that's just alertness. But for their nervous system, the brain registers that faster heartbeat, scans its internal threat records, and starts raising quiet alarms. Fast heartbeat means something's wrong. Something is coming. Within moments, an entire ordinary morning starts to feel like the beginning of something dangerous. Normal physical sensations get translated into emergency signals, and the result is a body that feels permanently braced, even when life is objectively calm and nothing is actually threatening them. So what do you actually do with an awareness that never turns off? The answer is not to become less perceptive. That isn't possible, and honestly, it would be a loss. The goal is not to dim the light. It's to stop letting the light consume you. 3 shifts tend to make the biggest difference. First, noticing something does not obligate you to carry it. You can observe without absorbing. Awareness and responsibility are not the same thing. Second, the body needs deliberate recovery. Not just sleep, but genuine stillness. Moments where the scanning is consciously paused. Because the brain doesn't know when to stop on its own. Sometimes you have to make that decision for it. Third, they need to practice letting other people be responsible for their own emotional weight. Seeing someone's pain clearly does not mean you're required to take it on. That's not coldness. That is a boundary. And for a hyper-aware person, it is one of the most important things they will ever learn to hold. When they finally extend to themselves even a fraction of the compassion they give so freely to others, something changes. Not immediately, but steadily. They still notice everything. They still feel more deeply than most people around them ever will. But they stop being responsible for everything they notice. The awareness stops being something that happens to them and starts becoming something they choose how to use. A rare depth, a quiet understanding of people that most will never access. If you've ever been told you feel too much, think too much, or care too much, those were never flaws. They were always a gift waiting for the right understanding. If this video felt personal, leave a comment below with the part that hit closest to home. You are not alone in this, and you never were.